everyone. Today we are going to be starting to talk about the Romans and the Republic. Now, I just want to say at the beginning of this video that this is a very brief, like Cliff Notes view of some of the governmental structure in Rome and not much else. So we are not covering the entirety of the Roman Republic period and the Roman Empire. There's just too much to cover. We're just hitting on some major highlights, and then we're gonna move on with this one. So let's get it started. The formation of the Republic. So in 509 BC, the Roman peoples overthrow the Etruscan king that was ruling over the area in the province that they are living in, and they set apart on a grand experiment called a republic. Now, initially they didn't write a constitution or anything like that down. They're basing this idea of a republican government loosely around the Plato's theorized form of government as the best form of government, where this intellectual elite form a group, are elected by citizens to then rule over and create laws for the betterment of the people in society. And for a very long time, it works. We're going to look at some of those dates here in a bit, but this type of democracy is not a direct democracy like the Greeks. It is an indirect or a representative democracy where people vote for representatives in government who then make laws and judicial decisions, etc. Okay? And discussion question I like to ask in class is, why were the Roman Greek forms of democracy different, and when are they appropriate specifically in a society? And something I'd like to talk about is why Athenian democracy worked in a small city-state but may not be appropriate for the entirety of and expanse of where Rome ended up conquering, even during the Republic period, or in a nation, say, like the United States of America, which is much larger, where if voting on every single little detail and thing would bog down the system to such an extent that it would become impossible to actually get anything real done. I mean, if you could imagine living in California and voting for laws, or say putting in a street sign in the state of Maine all the way across the United States. I mean, it would just be absolutely crazy. So you're voting for representatives who are making decisions at the national level, essentially, is what this is. I just thought this was a funny thing, you know. The Greeks and the Romans, very similar, but while the Romans took a lot from the Greeks, they really made a lot of these institutions their own. Okay, the secret to Rome's success. So the Romans, unlike the Greeks, come up with a form of democracy that lasts much longer. Hundreds of years, from 509 BC to 27 BC, when Octavian Caesar becomes Caesar and takes over Rome as the first emperor, becoming Augustus. So their system is to divide up power and allocate it amongst different groups and not allow one group to become too strong. And this is what makes modern democracies work and stand the test of time today, is this process. And so this is a oversimplified version of Roman democracy. So this box here, you could actually move to the side over here. The consuls are generals. Okay, they serve 1-year terms. They have to get reelected by these individuals every year, and they are in command of the army. And what's really interesting about this is the early Romans were fearful that if there was only one major general, one commander in chief of the armed forces, that individual, it would be easy for them to usurp power and take control of the country, creating a kingship or a military dictatorship. So instead, there's 2 of these individuals who are constantly vying for power and control, and they have to re-up their term every single year, and so they have to perform for the glory of Rome, expanding territory, etc. And so it puts them in a place where, even though they're immensely powerful in the job and duties that they have commanding the armies, they are limited to doing so for the glory of Rome, especially because the Senate, who is ruled by the patricians or the aristocrat, the Roman aristocracy, they're called patricians, as opposed to the plebeians, who are the general citizens that make up the lower assemblies. So the Senate is the national assembly that makes laws. They control foreign affairs. They control finance for the country, which also limits the consuls and what they can do. And they're also trying large cases and coming to decisions about what happens to people at a very high level. And then you've got 2 lower types of assemblies. As I understand it, the Comitia Assembly, I believe I'm saying that right-ish, is made up of middle-class Roman citizens. They are creating laws, trying judicial cases, electing magistrates, but this is at a more local level. The Senate here is in a national level. And then you've got the Concilium Assemblies, which are special assemblies, special regional assemblies, where they're creating laws, electing magistrates, trying judicial cases, etc., but only for special groups and regions. And so if something needed to be done at a more local level, concilium assemblies would be formed. They're specialist assemblies for specific purposes, and it might only be like doing 1 or 2 of these things, not all of them all at the same time. This type of assembly is, you can correct me in the comments if you find different information, but as I understand it, this assembly is one that is created for a very specific purpose. All right. Important principles of Roman law. Now, the Romans did some things that definitely carried over today. In my classes, we actually read excerpts from the Laws of the 12 Tables, which we'll see in a second, which forms kind of the basis of Roman laws. But we definitely took some of the key principles, and we still use them today in a lot of Western societies, and specifically in America. Things like all citizens are entitled to equal treatment under the law. A person is guilty until proven, or innocent until proven guilty. The burden of burden of proof to make sure to send someone to jail or to sentence them for a crime is with the accuser rather than the accused. So it's the person accusing someone of the crime, not the person who possibly committed the crime themselves. And any law that seems unreasonable or unfair could be set aside. It can be wiped off the books. And they organize their laws at the national level onto a written code called the 12 Tables, and they posted these around Rome so that people could see and understand them. And this forms the basis of law. This is not the entirety of Roman law, but it's like the core and foundation of the laws that are created. This is an assignment that I do in class, like I said. On my Google Classroom, I have already posted at this point, or I will, the Law of the 12 Tables assignment where you could do this on your own. Okay, the expansion of Rome. So Rome is established as a republic. They're ruling over a small city-state, but they've got these two individuals, the consuls, who need to keep their jobs, and so they begin expanding through conquest, and then the Senate is doing their best to expand through trade, as they're in charge of foreign affairs. And this is taking place over several hundred years. This is not something that happens overnight, where they're continuing to expand and expand and expand throughout most of Europe and around the Mediterranean Sea, where they end up in a conflict with the other major city who is doing the same thing. In the Punic Wars, they run into a conflict with the city-state of Carthage. A series of wars ensue. Rome ends up coming out on top of that conflict and wiping Carthage off the face of the planet, enslaving people who were there and salting the earth so that no one can grow crops there ever again. It was fairly brutal in its execution. But here you see in this map the expansion of Rome over time. So from 500 to 264, you have the consolidation of the Italian peninsula here. And then from 265 to 146, you've got expansion into Europe and a little bit around the Mediterranean Sea. And then during the Punic Wars that I just mentioned, and then during the final years of the Republic, they're continuing to expand North Africa, Egypt, modern-day Turkey, Israel, Palestine, and then into Gaul, which is modern-day France, and then the Roman Empire expands things even further. And with with the spread of Rome, democracy is spread. The Romans let individual towns and cities and peoples typically keep their own gods and things like that, but they also restricted their local governments and created a Roman system that supersedes and covers that region, demanding tribute and bringing Roman law with them. But as the Republic grows, so comes dishonesty, greed, hunger for power. The patrician families were often fighting amongst themselves, and over time, power-hungry individuals are grasping for more and more power, and then we see the democracy fall to, Julius and then Octavian Caesar, who end up taking control of the Republic and creating an empire. And the democracy comes to an end in 27 BC with these events. The first Roman emperor, Augustus Caesar. And Augustus there is a title that basically brings him on level with the Roman gods, if I'm understanding correctly. And so Octavian, he takes this title and it elevates him. He elevates himself to the level of a god as a Roman emperor, who's really rubbed a lot of people the wrong way, but he ended up consolidating and controlling the empire. The Roman Empire continued to expand under the emperors, but democracy was dead for a long time, for 1600 years until closer to the modern period. And that brings up our very, very brief explanation of Roman Empire, a little bit about the Republic. Thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.